Hello and welcome to Bishwobeena-Harmony with Tagore's Tagore Festival 2021. This initiative is supported by Multicultural New South Wales. We also thank our sponsor, Parramatta Motor Group. Throughout this festival, we are celebrating different aspects of the life and works of Rabindranath Tagore. Today, our focus is on education. We would look at Tagore's philosophy of a holistic education system and also learn about its modern-day application. We will discuss about various elements that can contribute towards the holistic development of children and some challenges as well faced by our contemporary education system. We divide today's session into two different segments with two distinguished guests. Both of them are renowned educators and also passionate advocates for a holistic education system for our children. Before we go to them, I would like to say a few words about our moderator for today's session. Laila Khondkar is an international development worker with almost 2 decades of experience. She has worked in different countries, including Bangladesh, Liberia, Papua New Guinea, Australia, Thailand, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. She is a passionate advocate of child rights realization with a focus on protecting children from all forms of violence. She believes in children's holistic development. She thinks that each member of society should understand how children think and feel at different age, view things from children's point of view, and perform their responsibilities to create a child-sensitive society. She is a committed person to contribute to this journey. I think it is now time to reveal our first guest for today's session. Someone who is a direct descendant of the Tagore family. He is the great-great-grandson of Satyendranath Tagore and Gyanoda Nandini Devi. Sudripta Tagore has spent a good part of his life as an educator and set up several schools, both in India and in other parts of the world. As a student of Patobhavan Vishwabharati, he has lived the educational processes initiated by Rabindranath Tagore and has the awareness of Tagore's educational ideas to put them into practice. Currently, he is the principal of Shantiniketan Tita School, his latest venture and dream project, an institution that combines modern pedagogy and Rabindranath's ideas. Before we go to our discussion, let's see how children of Shantiniketan Tita are exposed to natural environment and creative activities. It is my absolute pleasure to invite both Laila Khondkar and Sudripta Tagore on screen now.
Sudripta da, welcome to the program. We have just watched tree plantation ceremony in Shantiniketan Shishu Tirtha School. We know there is a focus to sensitize the students about nature preservation in the school. According to Rabindranath Tagore, nature is the best teacher and children need to grow up in proximity to the nature. And we also understand that the school is developing empathy of students in different ways so that they can learn not to harm any other living form and develop a sense of responsibility for the community around them. The school is adopting Tagore's philosophy on education in the context of 21st century and promotes holistic development of the child. This really seems extremely relevant. Could you please tell us a bit more about why the school was established and how you are running it now?
Okay, this all started off through the establishment of an orphanage in the year 1999. The prime movers were mainly my parents and a few more like-minded people. I always was into school education all my professional life. Then I started noticing that the orphanage was going through a bad patch because the people who were hands-on were aging. My parents are octogenarians, and so I decided that it's time for me to try and think what to do with this idea that was nurtured so carefully by my family. The only thing I know in my life, or the only skill I have, is school education. So I decided, let me marry these two ideas. The orphanage needs funds, and I have established schools all over the world for mainly corporates. So I decided that let us try and include a school, a fees-paying school into this whole project, so that the surplus or the funds that the school will raise will eventually nurture the orphanage. That's how this school, Shantiniketan Shishu Tirtha, under the same umbrella, came into being. Of course, the school is in Shantiniketan, and so it has to look carefully at the ideas of Rabindranath Tagore, because Shantiniketan is a space that the world knows only because of this one person. So when we established this school, my father, the other board members, their focus was that this would be a school where Rabindranath's educational ideas would be given a real-time chance. Unfortunately, his ideals have started waning in this world. Though they become relevant every day, the practice of his ideas has started waning in this world. So we decided to seriously give Rabindranath's ideas a good chance in his own space.
Okay, thank you very much. I am quite curious to understand a few aspects of your school, a bit more details. For example, we know that Shantiniketan Shishu Tirtha School is quite consciously a co-education school, and mixed group games are encouraged there. Everybody has to participate in songs and dance to promote an environment without gender bias. What has been the experience so far in this regard?
It has been lovely. First, let us understand that bias is a problem of this world. Bias of different types. It could be gender bias, it could be religious bias, it could be social status we are looking at. So Rabindranath's one of his educational ideas was to try and build a community which is consciously, which practices an environment of a space where there is very little bias. Now, we can't say that everything is hunky-dory. A space without any bias is almost an utopian idea. But we can consciously try and negate these bias in the atmosphere of the school. So what we do, as you rightly pointed out, there are mixed group games. We consciously do that. It is co-educational, quite consciously. We also look at the practice of fine arts, like, say, music, dance, art and craft, which we bring to the table for all the students, irrespective of their gender, to try and tell them that all these are practices which any human being can uphold. There's this very interesting bias that we see is cooking. So cooking is something which we see is left to the women. But in this school, we often do small experiments like baking a cake or something, which we make sure that everybody participates, the boys, the girls, to give them a sense that this is not something which has to be practiced by the girls alone.
Yeah, that's extremely important, that addressing this gender stereotype when children or students at a very formative stage of their lives. So you are focusing education on nature, you are also addressing the gender stereotypes, and you are also promoting empathy among students. Right. So I'm quite curious to learn that the parents of these children, most of them were educated differently. So probably they have to unlearn many things. And I quite like the quotation from Rabindranath Tagore that you have used in your homepage, which says that don't limit your child to your own learning, for he was born in another time. Like that in itself is extremely significant. How are you involving parents in this whole experience, so that they can also support children in this journey for holistic development?
You see, when we talk about holistic education, I presume for me it does not only limit itself to the students. It also permeates into the parents too. When they come in to seek admission here, I very clearly state what this school stands for, so that there is no ambiguity and they need to understand that this will be the idea of their child's schooling. So once they are on board, we look at their admission process. But I spend a lot of time with the parents. And then later on, when there's a push away from these ideas from the parents, I keep referring to our talk at the beginning of the child's journey in this school. I said, listen, I told you that this is what's coming. So I beg of you, let us adhere to that. More often than not, most parents are convinced because they do see the troubles of the world around them. So they keep toggling between their own ideas and what we represent. But eventually, when they become conscious of this, they usually come back. So educating parents is also a big task in the hands of any school.
Have you faced any particular challenge in any particular situation with a parent who was resisting the type of education you are trying to promote? Has that happened till now?
Yes, this happens quite often. Like a simple thing like girls playing football with boys, they get hurt, right?
Mm.
We do keep uh, we do take a lot of care. We have teachers around when they are playing, but they do get hurt. And I've heard two or three parents come and tell me that no, 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 my daughter can't play football with boys. Uh, it's also about probably their worry in the sense of physical touch. So I do understand their worries, but I have to keep reminding them that we keep a watch over issues, but they have to join these games because that is the that's the policy of the school. This is one thing I've often encountered, playing games with boys. It's a big no-no for a lot of families, but I haven't had even one family which did not come around.
That's really interesting, like how you are gradually sensitizing the parents also. So in your school, of course, there are students, there are parents, but then without teachers, education cannot be offered. And I know that Rabindranath Tagore emphasized a lot on designing an education system from a child's point of view, and the importance of being child sensitive and stimulating thinking and nurturing imagination are quite central to his ideas on education. And the children should learn with joy. In an essay that I read recently, it's called Shiksha Samosya, he wrote that it's not a crime that children have not memorized algebra and history before their birth. I found that to be extremely significant. And he even said that we should have mercy on children, as the education system really confines a child and is almost like a punishment. And Rabindranath Tagore felt very strongly for the child. In Shantiniketan Shishutirtha School, it's really wonderful to know that teachers are collaborators in the learning environment, and teachers are trained in Rabindranath's ideas and modern day pedagogy. Could you please elaborate on teachers' training and especially how they treat children?
Right. As I keep saying that Rabindranath because has started becoming relevant by the day, look at the world we live in. Memorizing is a non-option in today's world, right? With the availability of the WWW, World Wide Web, one doesn't need to memorize anything. As a matter of fact, there's absolutely a overburdening of information. So a child needs to be taught, if we are talking in pure academics, how to handle the information that is available around them. I presume Rabindranath would have been very pleased to hear that we do not ask them to memorize because it's redundant in today's world. So getting this thought into a teacher's mind is of prime importance. So this is something which is very difficult to make a teacher believe because their whole school experience was based on rote learning, memorizing, and all that. So for that, we also have to give them tools so that they can teach without taking recourse to memorization. So we have partnered with an organization called XSEED, XSEED, and they provide us with lesson plans which are planned to be delivered in the Socratean model. That means through questions and answers. So we have to provide them tools, we have to train them, and what I feel of utmost importance is when the physical school is open, we meet every day, as every day, even if it is for 15 minutes, and we talk education, we talk children, so that as a group, we know which way we are heading. And if there's an anomaly, I steer them around. That is how we try to create this atmosphere, and we get good results. Teachers who have been from the beginning, now they are the mentors for the other teachers. So that's how the chain goes on. And my hope is that, say, 4 or 5 years from now, if these teachers are in some other school, they will also carry this sense of education with them, whichever school they go to.
Exactly. And I know, like, in the traditional schooling system in most places across South Asia, like, students' confidence is affected a lot because they are being compared in an ongoing way. Like, some students are performing or getting good grades and you are not doing that well, and things like that. And that's so harmful at such a young age if the students hear that it's almost their fault. But in the contrary, it's the responsibility of the teachers and the education system, to provide them good quality education. How do you address that in student-teacher interaction in your school?
Right. Again, let's start from the beginning. Rabindranath. In his ashram school, there was a practice that a particular student could study in maths in, say, class 4, in English in class 5, and in science in class 3. It was a possibility. So Rabindranath not only encouraged this, he practiced it. He got it within the process of the school. He made it something which was a possibility for a student. So if this is the scenario, no child would feel that I'm first or I'm second. I go along with my academics as per my abilities, as per my skills that I have. Modern education does talk about this a lot. There is something called differentiated instruction, DI, they call it DI in short. This is practiced in a lot of schools. I'm not talking about Southeast Asian schools probably, but yes, even within Southeast Asian schools, there are a lot of schools which practice DI. These are strategies by which a class is broken up into segments, looking at the children's abilities. And then strategies are formed to address these levels. For us, it is very difficult to do what Rabindranath did. He was light years ahead. He was even the amount of risk that he was willing to take. I can't, right? But even then, we do bring in these practices. We train teachers in the strategies of differentiated instruction. Not only that, there are these theories which uphold a child's, what should I call, the variety of, say, intelligence or, say, learning styles of different children. Let me talk about Howard Gardner. Howard Gardner has propounded this empirical database theory known as multiple intelligences. It talks about the 8 or 9 types of intelligence that human beings possess. And this theory is one of the pillars of modern school education. So if Rabindranath, of course, did that instinctively, he wasn't a theoretician as far as school education is concerned, but he was bang on. So we have these theories in today's learning. So I transfer these, like the work theory, the multiple intelligences theory, into the teachers. And then I teach them to look at children differently. You're not teaching, you're observing children very carefully to try and understand how they learn, so that we can create an atmosphere which suits each child to learn.
Yeah.
So
that's so encouraging.
Yes, the teacher's task is not to teach. The teacher's task is to connect and learn how children learn.
Yeah. So it's like building on children's strength and responding to their individual needs. Each child is different, so it's the responsibility of the teachers, to design the education or facilitate learning. Teachers are facilitators. Sudripta, you mentioned something very important while we are just talking. Like, we have all the information of the world, probably too much information on internet. And during COVID-19 pandemic, we have also seen that most of the education happened online. So how do you view the role of school or any education system, like as a physical space? What if someone says, like, why students should even bother going to a school or university in future when we can learn everything online? What's the future of school in general?
You don't have to ask that to me. Ask any child. Ask any child how they are enjoying this online platform. And I can, bet my life on it. Everybody will say, I don't like it. So a type of learning which a child does not like for a, prolonged period of time, how can that even be a sort of alternative in school education? It can be something which can be thought as a stopgap.
Yeah.
But it cannot be the pivot of learning at any point of time, because children don't like it. What do they miss? They miss their friends, physical proximity with their friends. And we keep seeing that in our online classes. You see, they have figured out ways of doing the high five online. So, two bosom friends that I know of, every day morning when we get onto the class, they'll say, high five. And I know that they are absolutely craving for the physical touch. Human beings are social animals. They are not internet animals. And social animal society means touch and feel of different human beings. So this could be an alternative which needs to be gone through, because there's no other way of keeping them in touch with education. But the school is not only about academics.
Yeah.
It's about human values. It's about life skills. It's about community building and a lot of other things which cannot be replicated on the online platform, period.
Yeah, now, I think you have just mentioned something so very important, that if a school cannot offer those, then students may say, like, I don't want to go to that school. but this community building, this human relationships and everything that a student cannot learn through internet, the school has to offer those. And, you are just doing that through your school. But let me stay on that point for a while. Like, we have seen like tremendous advancement of technology, over the last few years. And, the world has changed so fast. Sometimes it's overwhelming. And we have also heard a lot over the many years now about STEM education, like science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But only recently an A for arts has been added to that. So we are talking about, STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And there has been advancement in artificial intelligence also. And it's being said that employment situation will change drastically. Many new professions may emerge, while some existing professions will disappear, absolutely. What students are learning today may be totally irrelevant when they enter a job market, like in their youth. Many people may have several professions throughout their careers. In present world, students really need to develop critical thinking ability, communication, teamwork, problem solving, so that they can be retrained throughout their lives. But we still see for many parents or in many societies, still now there is huge emphasis on getting good grades, and children are going through huge amount of pressure that they have to excel in examination. Like, how do you view education in this context, and how are you preparing the students for future in your school?
Get back to Rabindranath. Remember, he said that do not try to think about your child from the education that you received. Let us look at the present scenario. We are communicating through a device, through a means which no formal education in my life ever taught me to. There were no mobile phones when I was growing up. So there was no way that my parents could even think about the world I would live in as a professional, right?
Yeah.
If that is true, why do we think that we would be able to predict the future of the child who has joined our school in grade 1? If we want to, we are the fools, right? So then what can we do about it? There is this often quoted term called learning how to learn, right? Though it sounds cliched, but that is the mantra. We have to give the children the ability to learn new things. That should be the focus of school education. And if we don't do that, if we prepare them for, say, you have to become a doctor or an engineer, I'm sorry, we are doing them a big disservice. Because even in the field of medicine, the jobs that are open today will probably vanish. And each professional will have to toggle between at least 4 to 5 professions in their lives. This is something which we are already seeing, and data says so.
Yeah.
So if I sort of impose my sense of the world as I know it onto children, I'm finishing them off. As simple as that. We can only be with them in their exploration of the world. they will have to figure out this world for themselves. And my intervention is also very limited. It boils down to nudges. That I can do a bit of hand holding, that let's walk this path. We can make them confident. If they are stumbling, I can lend a hand that, okay, I'm there with you. I want them to be risk takers, but no human being becomes a risk taker like that. They have to be nudged to take the risk. That is the job of the adult, that I'm there. You can take this risk. I'll see to it that you're safe. So this extremely important skill of taking a risk is very important in today's world. They'll have to keep taking risks, right? If you look at the International Baccalaureate, they put a lot of premium on this skill, that the children need to be risk takers. Adults can just see to it that they are safe while these children are taking risks. So our role is very limited. Let us first acknowledge that.
Yes.
Let us first say, forget about pedestalic teaching. Forget about the phrase, the teacher. And then let's see where we stand.
Yeah. And how do you view like combining this mind of a scientist or technologist with the vision of an artist or designer? Is there a room for both if we want holistic education?
It has to be so, because if you look at the modern schooling system prevalent, let me talk about the Indian scenario, because that's the one I'm well versed in. Schools either focus on the STEM aspect, that means the sciences, the engineering and all that, or they focus like the Krishnamurti Foundation schools. They move towards the other extreme, the liberal arts. But this needs to be balanced if we are talking about any good scenario. It's very difficult, I do understand. But Rabindranath did. He was the poet that we know about. But he was also looking at when the light of Betelgeuse, the planet, reaches Earth. He introduced the telescope in the ashram school. So he was very interested in the sciences. Now, there is this level where the sciences and the arts meet. All right? And that is the level of the wonder, the awe of this world. What we call the metaphysics, where the physics and the world of the ideas of philosophy, they meet. This is a real possibility. Now, one has to be conscious about that, and then one has to practice this. Let me give you an example of this school. We have what is known as a nature walk class within the timetable. All right. So when I take them out, I'm not only pointing at small insects, the leaves, the birds and everything as something to be beautiful. I'm also pointing out that these also have a place in sciences. Look how nature revolves. What are the flowers that you see now? What are the sort of clouds that you see now at this point of time? How have the trees changed? These are parts of science, but they also have an appreciation value. That is important for any school to do. I try, as I keep saying, it's difficult, but we can only try.
Yeah. Sudripta, you have just given a beautiful example how you combine this science and arts, even during a nature walk. And as I was listening to your having this conversation, I was just thinking that in the context of climate change and huge environmental degradation, the world is becoming aware about the importance of nature, or there are lots of conflicts in the world and how we have to treat other human beings with respect and dignity. And gender and diversity are all big issues. And we are trying, but Rabindranath Tagore, so many years ago, already practiced it in reality. And it's so wonderful that you are adapting his philosophy to the 21st century context. What are your dreams about the school?
Okay. Nature. When Rabindranath envisaged it, he was looking at it probably in the sense of a value addition to human beings, right? If I am sensitive towards nature and if I am in proximity to nature, I become a better human being. Now, today, it is a question of our survival. Please understand. It is no longer a luxury. And I presume Rabindranath understood that this is the way the world was going so many years back. One, look at it from another perspective. We were talking about not being able to predict about the future world in which our kids will join as professionals. This much we can say, that the highest paying jobs, when they will grow up, one of the fields would be pertaining to nature. Even if it is the world of the automobiles, they'll have to think how the cars can be created, the designing, so that it is nature smart, if I may say so. All right. And of course, there will be the direct intervention by which these kids will have to participating in saving their very existence. Now, sensitivity towards nature is not something you can teach on the board. It has to be an atmosphere through which this sensitivity seeps into a human being. Fine. So I'm not only creating an atmosphere through which these kids will become better human beings, I'm also seeing to it that they are equipped with a skill which will give them an edge in their professional life. That is how important it is today.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful that you are visioning in that way, and hope one day I will be able to visit your school and see in person. Yeah, once this lockdown is over. So Sudripta, all the best for your school, and thank you so very much for taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you so much, Sudripta. It was an absolute privilege to have you. Thank you. If I may ask you a different question, not related with education, like how difficult it is or how easy it is to carry the surname of Tagore?
Oops. While growing up, it was very difficult. Because, I was a student of Bishwobeena-Harmony, then I joined a school in Bishwobeena-Harmony. And then I realized that whatever I do, people, the perspective of the people would be, oh, to Thakur badi chele tai to school e chakri ta peyeche ba eta korche. So I practically ran away. In 1995, I decided I had enough of this. I want to be in a space where whatever I do would be considered. If it is bad, it's mine. If it is good, it's mine. And so I left West Bengal for a good 20 years. So from 2005 to 2014, I was out of the state, out of the country often, and then out of the state for sure. And then when learning never ends, but when I thought that in education I had sort of gathered this bit of skill, that's when I decided to come back. Of course, for other reasons too. My family needed me.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We wish you all the best. Even I would love to visit your school someday when the borders are open. Hopefully,
now you have to.
I have to make it then. Yeah, of course. From the story of an institution, we now move to a person who himself is an institution. From Shantiniketan, we now travel to Dhaka. Robindranath was awarded an honorary D.Litt from Dhaka University. Our next guest once graduated from the same university. Any guess who he is? Dr. Muhammad Zafar Iqbal worked as a research scientist in the USA for 12 years before returning to Bangladesh. He taught in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering of Shah Jalal University of Science and Technology for over 25 years. He was a pioneer in the development of Bangla computerization in Bangladesh and also led a team to develop Pipilika, the first Bangla search engine. He has contributed to the national education policy of Bangladesh and mobilized a nationwide movement to popularize science, mathematics, and computer programming among children. Dr. Iqbal is a prolific writer, authored more than 230 books. He is extremely popular for his science fictions and children's adventure stories. Let's welcome Laila Khondkar back, this time with Dr. Muhammad Zafar Iqbal.
Sir, welcome to the program. It's a real pleasure for me to have an opportunity to talk to you on various aspects of education and children's holistic development. You have returned back to Bangladesh after engaging in scientific research in the USA for almost 18 years. And you have taught at Shah Jalal University of Science and Technology for many, many years. You have also contributed to the education policy development in Bangladesh. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on the status of education in our country. From observations, it suggests that things are not going that well. Generally we observe that having good grades has become the main focus of education, and there is a huge dependency on coaching centers and tuition, private tuition. And the education system also does not stimulate the thinking as well as imagination of the students. They are so busy with their studies that they hardly have any time for extracurricular activities like sports, music, or painting that we know are crucial for for children's development. And so, like, it's a matter of huge concern. Like, are students really gaining the skills required to make meaningful contribution in any sector? And unfortunately, some students even commit suicide after the publication of SSC or HSC results. Like, this is so alarming. So in your view, what has really gone wrong, and what could be done by the education authority to address this issue? And what could be the role of parents and other members of society in this regard?
Okay. Thank you. But you see, first of all, you have to acknowledge one very basic factor, right? The population of Bangladesh is 160 million, and the number of students is around how many? 50 million, right? And I guess the sheer number of students in Bangladesh is more than the population of Australia, for example, by factor 2. All right. So the magnitude of the problem is huge. Considering the economic background of Bangladesh, it's not easy. I was in the education policy system here, and then I realized if you want to buy one chalk and give every school one single chalk, then you have to buy 80,000 chalks. All right. So anything you want to do in Bangladesh, the problem, the magnitude of the problem is so big that it's not so easy to handle it here. So basically, the focus in Bangladesh was, towards the number of students initially. That let's see how many students can we enroll, and what is the number of literacy in Bangladesh over here. So because the population was in the number, not in the quality. So that's what it's actually we are suffering from that. So only recently everybody is talking about quality. Okay, not the number. We have as far as the number is concerned, we have enough students over here. Now we have to improve the quality here. So only recently they have started towards the quality. Basically, everybody knows that the education system in Bangladesh right now is not that great here. It's very much dependent on the coaching center and guidebooks. And the teachers are not well trained. They do not know exactly how to teach the students properly. Right? So the problem is well known, and it is not that we do not know the problem, or the administration doesn't know the problem, or the ministry doesn't know the problem. Everybody knows the problem. So once you know what the problem is, only then you can solve the problem. If you do not know the problem is, you can never solve the problem over here. So basically, if you ask me, my answer would be, it is kind of messed up our education system, because it was not an easy problem. It's a very difficult problem. If you want a good school, the number one requirement is you need good teachers. If you cannot have good teachers, you cannot have good school here, because only a good teacher knows the psychology of children, and they can teach them properly. And there was a big thrust on the general mass for educating their children. So the parents, they sent their students, their son and daughters to the schools here, but they did not get the real importance of the education. They thought that good grade is probably the only requirement here. So there is a lot to blame to the guardians also. Every time we wanted to have a reform in Bangladesh, it's the guardians who came and said, no, don't do it, because they got the wrong messages over here. So basically that's the problem here. And if you ask me that now the government and the general mass and the students and the teachers, more or less everybody knows that for proper education you have to get rid of these coaching centers, and you have to get rid of the guidebooks here. It should be a lot of fun in the school and stuff like this. So the process has only started right now. So we expect to see some results.
Okay. Yeah. So as you have just said, we need good teachers. That means we have to make investment in training good quality teachers who can offer quality education. And what you have just mentioned, sir, seems extremely important to me. The parental mindset about what you expect out of education. For example, why a child would commit suicide after the results? Probably he or she is afraid of the reactions. How do you view that? Why our education system is not able to bring joy to children's lives? It's creating a sort of atmosphere of fear. Education should not be that fearful, what can we do? Of course, it's a large problem, and many things need to change. Hopefully that will gradually change. But why should children feel so afraid, in the schools? Because we know the Ministry of Education issued a circular banning corporal punishment of students in all educational settings. But still it happens once in a while. And even when there is no punishment, there is a lot of humiliation. There may not be physical punishment, but teachers continue to humiliate children. And we just get the extreme cases reported in the media. But the point is, are we treating children with respect and dignity in our education system? How do you view that as an educationist, and what can we do to change that?
It varies from school to school. First of all, if someone wants to be a teacher, he or she has to love the children, all right? If you do not love the children, you shouldn't be a teacher. I mean, teaching is not a profession, it's a commitment, all right? This is the basic fact over here. But if you take it as a profession, you go there, you do something, and then get the salary, and that's it. Then it's not going to work nowhere. Not in just primary school, not secondary school, not even in the universities over here. So basically, that's it. I mean, you need good teachers over here. But as I mentioned earlier, anything you want to do, the huge number is difficult. So there are teachers training going on over here. For example, I can give you an example. The one major problem is mathematics. Okay. So normally what happens in our country, if you say, okay, the students are not getting proper mathematics, then you get some foreign experts, for some reason they think skin is white, it never works, okay? For the first time in the history of Bangladesh, right, the education ministry came to us meaning the math Olympiad team. And can you do something about it? And we worked very hard. And we said, okay, you should properly teach the students the maths this way in the primary level over here. So they made a pilot project, and there were about 80 schools. We have been working on these 80 schools to see how it works, and it worked so well. Even before the pilot project was over, the government said, okay, so do it for all the schools over here. So it's a massive project here. The moment we realized that we have to do for all the schools, 80,000 schools, 80,000 teachers, math teachers, all right. So the teaching them. It's a big thing over here. So that thing is going on, and this during the COVID period and stuff over here. So they realize the problem. All right. Yeah. Once you realize the problem, you help it. And about the suicide thing, it's very sad. But you see, this is nothing new over here. I've been seeing it from my childhood. This is the age when small children, they're very vulnerable, around 14, 15 years old. All right. In the whole world, the suicide is a major cause of death over here. In Bangladesh, factor of 2 more when people committed suicide compared to the death from COVID over here. Right? Yeah? So suicide is a very serious problem. Yeah. At that particular age, they are so sensitive. Anything can trigger the suicide here. Yeah. My daughter is a psychologist over here, so they can there are some of them who are more vulnerable than others. But the parents, they do not help. I've seen it myself. If a children, they do not do good in the exam, instead of helping them, being in the side of them, humiliate them. And even if suppose the parents are all right, but other neighbors and everybody, so this is kind of sad over here. You need education, you need continuous, grooming and helping them, and you need psychologists. If supposing we have enough resources, then we will say, okay, you should put at least one psychologist in every school over here, all right, so that they can communicate with them. But even in the universities, they do not have, psychologists and stuff. They have them over here. So, these are major problems.
Exactly.
Problems are related to condition over here.
Yeah. So what I hear from you, like some initiatives are going on in terms of improving the quality of maths teaching. That's really great. And all of us need to be more sensitive to the children, like how children think and feel at particular stages, especially when they are going through some changes in their lives. So I think that's a very important message for all of us. And in fact, that's something I wanted to explore with you. Like while we read your books, it becomes very clear that you try to see things from children's point of view. I'm just reminded of one of your most loved books, Amar Bondhu Rashid, where you have seen our liberation war through the eyes of several adolescent boys. And it's just such a powerful story. And we also know that children and adolescents interact with you very easily. I was just reviewing some of the questions that they post to you through your website. from maths and science problems to their personal issues, and you also respond to them very seriously. That means like children find you to be very approachable, but unfortunately that's not the case in general in our society. There is a huge power dynamics between adults and children. Like some of us adults, we think that, okay, children are dependent on us and they will just follow what we tell them. We don't listen to children actively or don't consider their views seriously. And even if it comes to education, we know many brilliant students after passing HSC, they are not able to study a subject that they love. Parents in many cases will force them to study something that they consider to be important for that child's future, even at the extent of making that child extremely unhappy and miserable. So how would you view this issue, and what would you say to all of us how we can behave, and so that that's helpful for the children and students?
First of all, it's not easy to understand a child or a children. When I was very young, very, very young, 3, 4, 5 years old, I could understand everything was going around me. All right. So I know a small child, he basically understands everything. His brain is completely developed. Only thing he's missing is some information. But his brain is capable of doing anything over here. So, because I remember my childhood, I do not underestimate any children. All right? I know that he understands everything. He's sensitive. He has a fully developed brain. I can communicate with him. He can communicate with me over here. So this is, that's what I did all my life here. When I write a book for a child or children, I always write from their point. I know they understand it, right? And this is the problem, a major problem over here. We always say, okay, child, they do not understand anything here, so we ignore over them. Basically, they can give you the solutions of the problem, even for the education. I get lots of questions from them. I know exactly what the problem is. One of the major complaints of the students to me, that their parents, they do not let them read books, story books, or any book which is not a curriculum. All right? But this is unbelievable that a parent can think that a book cannot be beneficial for a student over here. All right? So, so I have to tell them. And in fact, I told them, all right, if your parents do not let you read books, do something. Go to the bathroom and, turn on the light. I said, okay, go under the bed, under the blanket here, and everybody's sleeping, turn off your, light or mobile phone or whatever, and read the book. Because I will do the same thing if you say that my parents is not giving me any food to eat. I will say, okay, go and steal some food and eat. Because if you do not eat food, you will not survive here. It's the same thing. If you do not read books, you do not develop yourself. So, these are kind of sad. It's not only in my country. And now I see, as because of this smartphone and Facebook and things like that, they, lots of children, they're spending their time in front of a screen, not reading books as before over here. So that's a major problem, not only in our country, I think it's in the whole country.
Exactly.
Not letting them study what they want to study. You have to again understand the viewpoint of the parents over there. The parents want their child to, after the education, to get a job. All right? And they figured they will get a job if they become a doctor or they become an engineer, because there is a scarcity of doctors and engineers. They always get a job over here. So they want their children to become a doctors and engineers. They are not doing it with, bad intention. That's what they think is good for them and good for the family, good for the country over here. So basically, if you cannot improve the situation, develop the situation, the economic situation, I don't think there's a very easy way of that. Only if there are a few children who is really adamant, say, no, I want to study science, I don't want to study engineering. They fight with their parents and go to the study science and stuff over here. But this is not only in my country. You have to remember, if you go to the other countries, even like United States or it's the same problem here. They want to be an engineer or doctor. And in India, it is so prevalent. If you are a girl, you become a doctor. If you are a boy, you become an engineer. That's how they think over here.
Yeah, it's very gendered. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. Like, we have lots of economic issues and all that. But, even within that constraint, if we try to understand what will be good for the child's well-being also and overall productivity, because, if a person is not happy, he or she will not be able to succeed or excel in a professional field. A person has to work with passion. So even within all the constraint, if parents recognize that a child may be interested in pursuing a certain discipline, and if he or she is passionate about it, that will help him or her to excel. So I think we also have to develop that understanding. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. Of course. I try to convince them. Everybody doesn't have to be a scientist. What is the meaning of success? That you earn a lot of money, you earn a lot of respect, you become famous, or you are happy. I think
exactly.
So just make them happy. You do not have to be.
Yes.
We have more or less, we do not have the basic economic problem anymore over here. People can survive over here. I try to convince them. You do not have to be famous. You do not have to be rich. You do not have to be powerful. Just be happy. Try to do what you want, right? If you can think about it, that then life becomes so much easier.
Yeah.
Someone is so good in cricket, but they want them to be, engineer. Why?
Exactly.
Sing so well. Okay, let him be a singer. Somebody draws so well. Okay, let him, become an artist over here. Why everybody has to be a scientist or engineer or famous?
Yes.
I'm really against this thing. Is trying to be famous. So why you are not famous? I've seen so many famous people in my life. They're not happy. All right.
Exactly. Like we are living in a celebrity obsessed culture, and what is the definition of success? Society may define success in a certain way, but that does not mean you are having a meaningful life. It's important to have a happy and meaningful life. And if we understand the difference between having a successful life according to the definition of society and doing something meaningful with our existence, brief existence in this world, then probably we can address many challenges in a positive way. So it was really interesting to hear that some children are coming to you and asking that they want to read books that parents are against. Because while I was reviewing your website, I was quite struck by what you have written for children just on the homepage. The less time you spend on this website, the better. You better read a book or do some music or even do a programming. And I know, many of us, you also have concerns about the excessive amount of time, not only children, but even adults are spending with their electronic devices and spending on screen. And during COVID-19, that has gone up so much, and it's alarming. And research is showing spending excessive amount of time on screen and having a sedentary lifestyle, not having enough physical activity and other activities in their lives is really affecting children's development and well-being. And you are a writer. You have brought joy through your books to many generations of Bengali children. I am particularly curious to hear from you why reading books is still very important. We may have lots of information on the internet, but why it's critical that all of us read books?
Sure. Human being is not an intelligent animal. Right? You have to understand that thing. Human being is not an intelligent animal. Human being is human being because they can understand abstract things. This is the very fundamental thing. They can think about something which doesn't exist. Right? Human brain has this capacity of thinking something which doesn't exist. Right? So what basically you need your brain to stimulate so that you can do these abstract things here. Now, what is abstract thing? How do I do abstract things? Reading book is perfect example of abstractions. In a piece of paper, there are some scribbles of black thing over here, and it is meaningless if you do not know how to read. If you can read, then all of a sudden it's meaningful. All right. You look at this thing goes through your eyes and goes into your brain, and your brain deciphers it and it thinks about it. All right. Supposing you see something, such a blue sky. There is no blue sky in the book. It's just blue sky. But your brain right away, it sees blue sky. It can think about a blue sky. All right, you can imagine that thing over here. So that abstraction is the most important thing over here. That's why you read books, because if you read books, you look at the same thing and you read, you imagine that thing over here. And this thing, the imagining things over here, that stimulates your brain. It makes you more human. Even Einstein, he's the greatest scientist of all time. He said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Right? Imagination is more important than knowledge. Right? He said knowledge is not important, imagining is important. But what we think that knowledge is important. We just try to put as much knowledge as we can in his book. In fact, not even knowledge. We put information, and we think, okay,
Exactly.
more information you have, the more knowledge you have. No, it's not true. Information has nothing to do with knowledge, and information has nothing to do with imagination. So if you want to have a better human being, you better read books. Number one, if you go in the screen time, you read a couple of lines over here, and you do not spend time. But if you want to read a book, you need a commitment. You start the book, it's a kind of big book, slowly read this thing here, you spend time, all right? There are lots of things that, you can never do these things in any other way. This is the only way you can do it, reading I continuously, and I basically, I think it will never go away. Not that after, because of the civilization and the technology and this and that, book will go away, I don't think so. I mean, books will be there.
Exactly. No, thank you very much, sir, for explaining it so beautifully, because I think many people really do not understand like why reading books is still critical. So I thought it will be useful for all of us to hear from you. But do you have any advice for all of us how we can encourage children to read books from very early years? Because it's a habit that needs to be developed at a very young age.
Okay, I can give you an example. My story here. Basically, when I had my children over here, my wife used to spend a lot of time with my children. She used to read books to my two children, son and daughter. And at some point, they could read. We didn't know that they could read. Nobody taught them. They do not know the alphabets, but they can read. It was so mysterious. Right? We didn't know them. Somebody, one of the parents of one of his friends told us, "Your son can read." I said, "No, it cannot be." We never taught it. And we realized that yes, he can read. As because someone is reading to him, slowly he learned how to read. That's how our brain is. I respect our brain so much. It can do magic, and it happened to my daughter. All right. And once they know how to read here, we never have to worry about them. We do not have to buy toys, and we have to give them time. They never say they're bored. They never bored over here. They read books over here. And when I grew up and I came to Bangladesh, I had young colleagues. They get married and they have children. Always told them, read books to them, read books to them, read books to them. And they read books to them, and even they also learn to study. It's not that my children were very smart, so that's how they learned how to read. It's true. Every child will be able to read if you continue to read to them. And if they can read a book, know how to read a book, then you don't have to worry.
Yes.
Exactly. And I will tell that parents that everybody should, if your child is small, do this thing. If your child is not small, then encourage him to read books. Because book is very different from anything you can think of.
Definitely. And I think that could be a wonderful gift to a child from a parent, like developing the habit of reading books. And I think we adults also need to read books, because children learn by seeing what we do. If we are spending a lot of time with our electronic devices and asking children to read books, they will not follow. So I think our reading habit also needs to improve. Because I hear from people who used to read a lot of books before, they are these days also saying they read less books and spend a lot of time because the screen is very addictive. So I think we also have to be very conscious, in setting becoming the role models in front of children, and we have to read books for our own development also. What do you think, sir?
No, of course. I mean, this you say that is very addictive. It's not by accident that is addictive. Guys developing these things, they studied, they used, they did all kind of research to find out how can they keep them hooked up.
Exactly.
This is not an accident. This is deliberate things here. I can write in a piece of paper that 10 years from now or 20 years from now, the whole world will realize that this is like some kind of addiction, and it's like a drug or something. And later on, people will say, okay, what did I do? How could we destroy a couple of generations doing this stupid thing? I'm using the word stupid, right? You do not need to spend that much time on screen for whatever you do, right? Or whatever you do not need, just look outside the window, look at a tree or a plant, or a bird, or sky. This is much better than looking at the screen. Why do I have to look at the sky through my screen? I can look at the sky directly. But people realize, now they do not realize it right now. Right now they think it's so much fun over here. But I'm sure at some point the whole world will realize, and they'll revolt, and they'll come back to the original thing. That's what I think.
Yeah, let's hope so too. And the sooner we realize that, the better for all of us. Another thing I am quite curious about, because what always fascinates me about you is that you have this combination of becoming a scientist and science teacher, researcher, but at the same time, you are a writer. Usually in our society, we think, okay, these are scientists and these are writers. So you combine your passion for science and your writing and, your commitment for children and your activism in various forms. And you have done so much to inspire children in science through your books on science, science fictions and all that. And you are also leading the Bangladesh Math Olympiad, and which is already having a positive impact in maths education and in our society. But these days, sometimes I feel concerned that it seems to be many people in society are not having a scientific mind. You don't have to be a scientist to have a scientific mind. It's just an attitude towards life. And there is so much misinformation and disinformation. If you do not have a scientific mind, you will not be able to do your own analysis and reach a conclusion. You can be very easily misled. And we are living in a world where technology is changing everything very quickly. Sometimes it feels it's overwhelming. And I remember Stephen Hawking, in his last book, Brief Answers to Big Questions, ended with a very profound line where he said, the future of human species will depend on how wisely we manage our relationship with technology. I think that's very important. So what do you think we can do as a society that our children and students grow up with an interest in science, having a scientific mind, and also learn to use technology for their own benefits and for the benefits of humankind?
Yeah. So, basically, to answer your question, first of all, you said that I am a writer and a scientist at the same time. You think it's a bit strange. It's not strange. It's nothing to writing and nothing to do with science. Science is science and writing is writing. Anybody can be a writer. A scientist can be a writer. My elder brother, I am one of the most prolific writers of Bangladesh, the most popular writer in Bengali literature, I can say.
Exactly.
He did his PhD in chemistry as a chemistry professor over here. Manik Banerjee was, I think, he was a doctor or something. All right. So it has nothing to do with your profession. You can write, you feel like writing. Basically, I think if you read lots of books, then you feel like writing here. All right? In our family, more or less, everybody writes something or other, just because they read so many books over here. So every now and then, children write to me and they say, I want to be a writer. What should I do? I should read books. As long as if you really read lots of books, you will be a good writer. No doubt about it. Okay. And about this technology and science, this is, I say the same thing. I continuously tell them. See, science is always good. Science has, it's like in Bengali there is a saying, ku putro jodi ba hoy, ku mata kokono noy. Meaning is, you can have a bad son, but you can never have a bad mother. Right? So it's very similarly, all right? Ku technology jodi ba hoy, ku science kokono noy. But technology can be good, can be bad, and also useless. Right? They are completely useless technology. Right? So you need the capability of distinguishing between them. What is good technology, what is useful technology, and what is bad technology. So every time I get an opportunity, I tell the children, okay, of course you will use the technology. You should know the technology. All right? You use the technology, but never ever let a technology use you. Okay? So that's what is happening. Technology is using you. You feel like, looking at the screen, although there is no necessity, but, if you don't look at the screen, you don't feel good about it. You need to spend some time over here. So technology is dragging towards the screen over here. So first of all, you have to understand it. You have to, if you can give this message to small children that this is what's happening, then they will be, they probably will be alert here. But as you mentioned earlier, because parents themselves are hooked up with the screen and they are spending lots of time in the screen, if they say to their children that don't look at the screen so much, they will not, believe it. So you have to stay away from the children, from the screen first, to give your children good advices over here. So what, for example, we wrote ICT book starting from class 6. So I was editor of one of those books, and with most of the books I was editor in class 6, 7, 8, all those books. In every book I try to convince them that screen is bad. All right, use the technology only when it is necessary. Computer is useful, but do not need to spend a lot of time with computer. Computer game is not that great, things like that here. So if you can tell them very early childhood that this is good and this is bad, be careful about this thing here, maybe that will help over here. Otherwise, I think we are going through a phase right now, the whole world here, we have to go through this thing, and after 10 years, we'll see the world is totally messed up, and there will be, the whole world, like the way we are doing for the climate, we'll do the same thing for this so-called technology here. So Stephen Hawking is very right, when he said that when it depends how we do with the technology, I'm sure you have noticed that these days, big, very, very rich people, they are coming into science and technology. All right, space program was not run by a country, but now individual people, they run space programs over here. They send satellites to the sky as they want. They can put lots of satellites on the sky, which is not necessary, and someone will come up with an idea. Then we'll put an artificial moon kind of thing over here. We'll put this thing. They're tempering the environment also. All right, so we are going through a kind of very nasty time right now here. I'm kind of worried, waiting. But I'm sure I have trust in human beings, their goodwill, their common sense. So at some point they will realize and they will stop and they will, try to reverse the whole thing over here and go back the way it was before.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very nice tone, a note to end with. Let's keep hope. And I think, through your writing, through your work, you also continue to generate hope. And I hope that all of us will be a bit wiser in managing our relationship with technology. And we also need to educate children on how they can use technology for their own benefits. So it has been a wonderful pleasure to have this conversation with you. And I thank you very much. Thanks for your time, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I was just listening to your conversation. Sir, what can I say? I can only thank you from the bottom of my heart and from my organization, Bishwobeena, to be part of our, like you kindly agreed to be part of this Tagore Festival. And I would like to tell one thing, that you have made a difference through multiple generations. Like when we were a child, we looked up to your writings, and now I see through the website you manage, through that children are so easily they communicate with you directly. This is just amazing.
I'm not sure if this is a good thing to do here. I do not want them to spend time in the websites over
here. But what I'm trying to say is that relationship of trust, I'm sure not all those children can communicate those things they tell you with their parents or their siblings even. So this is something amazing, that how they can connect with you.
If you have gone through that thing, you have noticed sometimes they will ask me a question and say, please do not show my name. So
exactly. Yeah, I've seen that. Yes.
But I made it a point that everybody has to give me their name and their address, because I want them to talk, with their identity. I do not want to put it from behind here. Try to teach them, So, some of the basic things. But as I mentioned, I'm not sure if it's a good thing to do. I do not want them to spend a lot of time over here. Every now and then I just stop and I just get away for a month or so.
Yeah.
Then again,
Sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Hello again.
It has been an absolute privilege to have conversations with two well-respected educationists. Sudripta Tagore emphasized that teachers have to be the facilitators during the learning journey of students. He also reminded us that parents need to unlearn many things if we want to establish an education system that stimulates children's thinking and creativity, as most of them have went through schooling where memorizing was important. A good education system is about learning how to learn. He talked about the importance of education on nature for present and future of our planet. He also explained that we have to combine science and technology education with appreciation for liberal arts if children are to develop in a holistic way. Dr. Muhammad Zafar Iqbal emphasized that reading books remain very important for developing children's thinking and imagination. He also reminded all that children should be happy and we should not focus too much on grades they get. He expressed concerns that these days children and adults are spending too much time on screen and urged all that we reverse the trend. It's critical that we view things from children's point of view and are child sensitive. All these are linked to Rabindranath Tagore's thinking on education.
I would like to conclude today's session with a few lines from Tagore's writing, which will take us back to his original thought on holistic education. Tagore wrote in his essay, The Center of Indian Culture, "In education, the most important factor must be the inspiring atmosphere of creative activity. Education can only become natural and wholesome when it is the direct fruit of a living and growing knowledge. Our education should be in full touch with our complete life, economical, intellectual, aesthetic, social, and spiritual. For true education is to realize at every step how our training and knowledge have organic connection with our surroundings." My sincere thanks to you all for being with us today. We will see you another session of the ongoing Tagore Festival. Thank you.